Charlie's invisible backpack of ideas. Once upon a time in the cheerful town of Willowbrook, something strange happened. It was a town known for its joyful spirit, where giggles bounced off rooftops and laughter danced through the streets like music in the air. But on this particular morning, everything was eerily quiet. Charlie, a bright-eyed boy with a wild imagination, sat up in bed and stretched. Normally, the first sound he heard was the giggling of his little brother, Max, who found everything funny, even the way the toast popped out of the toaster. But today, there was nothing. No giggles, no chuckles, just silence. Charlie furrowed his brows. "That's odd," he muttered, hopping out of bed. He tiptoed to Max's room and peeked inside. Max sat on the floor, staring at his stuffed animals, his face blank. Charlie expected a silly joke or a playful giggle, but Max just sighed. "Max!" Charlie called. "What's wrong?" Max turned to him, his big brown eyes filled with confusion. "I don't know," he whispered. "I just don't feel like laughing today." Charlie blinked. His little brother always laughed. Always. He tried making a goofy face, puffing up his cheeks and crossing his eyes. Normally, Max would roll on the floor, laughing. But today, he just shrugged. Something was definitely wrong. Charlie rushed downstairs, expecting to hear his parents chuckling over their morning coffee. Instead, he found them sitting at the table, staring at their cups. No laughter, no smiles, just silence. "Good morning," Charlie said, forcing a cheerful voice. His mom gave him a small smile, but it wasn't the usual, warm, happy one. His dad simply nodded. "Why is everyone so quiet?" Charlie asked. His mom sighed. "It's strange, Charlie. I woke up this morning and something felt missing. I didn't even laugh at your dad's silly dance when he made breakfast." His dad nodded. "And I always laugh at my own jokes, but today they don't seem funny." Charlie's stomach twisted. His parents always laughed at their own jokes, even the really bad ones. Charlie grabbed a piece of toast and hurried outside. He had to check if the rest of the town was feeling the same way. Normally, the streets of Willowbrook were filled with the sounds of children giggling, shopkeepers chuckling with customers, and friends laughing over silly stories. But today, the town felt empty. Mrs. Potter, the friendly baker, stood behind her counter, staring at a fresh tray of cupcakes. Normally, she greeted everyone with a hearty laugh and a joke about how her cookies had extra giggles baked in, but today she just sighed. "Good morning, Mrs. Potter," Charlie said, hoping to get a reaction. She looked up, her eyes dull. "Morning, Charlie," she said flatly. Charlie felt a shiver run down his spine. Even Mrs. Potter had lost her laughter. He ran to the park, where kids usually played tag and told silly jokes, but today they sat in silence, staring at the ground. "What's happening?" Charlie murmured to himself. Then he saw his best friend, Olivia, sitting on a swing, looking just as confused as he felt. "Olivia!" Charlie ran up to her. "Have you noticed something weird?" She looked up at him, her usual bright expression missing. "You mean how no one is laughing?" Charlie nodded. "Yeah, Max didn't giggle this morning. My parents didn't even laugh at their own jokes. And Mrs. Potter isn't making any funny cookie jokes." Olivia sighed. "I tried telling my little brother a knock-knock joke, but he just stared at me." Charlie felt a deep sense of determination rise in his chest. "This isn't normal. Laughter doesn't just disappear." Olivia nodded. "So, what do we do?" Charlie thought for a moment. Then he grinned. "I think I know how to fix this." Olivia raised an eyebrow. How? Charlie tapped his temple. My invisible backpack of ideas? Olivia tilted her head. Your what? Charlie grinned. I keep all my best ideas in an imaginary backpack. When I need inspiration, I just unzip it and pull something out. Olivia smirked. And what do you think is inside today? Charlie took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He imagined himself unzipping his invisible backpack, reaching inside and pulling out. A joke book, he announced. Olivia's eyes brightened slightly. A joke book? That could work. Charlie nodded. If we want to bring back laughter, we need to remind everyone why laughing is fun in the first place. And the best way to do that is with jokes. Olivia grinned. All right, Charlie, let's bring the giggles back. And with that, Charlie and Olivia set off on their mission to save the laughter of Willowbrook, armed with nothing but a head full of jokes and an invisible backpack of ideas. Charlie and Olivia hurried through the quiet streets of Willowbrook, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The town felt unusually still, like a world frozen in time. As they walked, Charlie continued to think about the invisible backpack he carried in his mind. It had never let him down before. Whenever he needed a spark of creativity, the backpack was always there. I hope this works, Olivia said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. What if the jokes aren't enough? Charlie gave her an encouraging smile. If there's one thing I know, it's that laughter is powerful. People just need a little reminder. They reached the town square, where a small group of people had gathered, all looking as puzzled as Charlie and Olivia felt. The usual laughter from the fountainside, the playful chatter near the benches, it was all gone. Charlie opened his arms. Okay, let's start with the basics. He looked over at Olivia. I've got this. He imagined himself unzipping his invisible backpack, the familiar sensation of reaching inside filling him with confidence. His fingers brushed through the air, and he pulled out. A joke book, Charlie announced triumphantly, holding up his hands as if it were a real object. Olivia raised an eyebrow. A joke book? Yup, Charlie said, flipping an imaginary page. All right, here goes. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? The crowd stared at him blankly. Charlie gave them a dramatic pause before announcing, a carrot. There was no laughter, no smiles, no chuckles, just more silence. Charlie's smile faded a little. Okay, let me try another one. He quickly flipped to another imaginary page in the joke book. Why don't skeletons fight each other? He paused again, but the crowd remained quiet. Because they don't have the guts, Charlie delivered with enthusiasm, waiting for the giggles to come. But instead, all he heard was the wind rustling the leaves of nearby trees. Olivia frowned. Charlie, it's not working. Charlie felt a pang of doubt, but he refused to give up. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and imagined reaching even deeper into his invisible backpack. Okay, let's try something else, Charlie said, more determined than ever. We need something big, something funny. He reached into the invisible backpack again and pulled out an enormous, fluffy, tickly feather kshi. He grinned, knowing it would work. He could already feel the softness of it in his fingers. This is it, Charlie said, holding the feather up. The tickly feather always works. Olivia looked at the feather skeptically. That tiny thing, how's that going to help? Charlie chuckled. Trust me, it's magic. With a mischievous grin, Charlie walked up to a lady sitting on a bench who was staring blankly ahead. He gently tapped the feather on her arm, watching closely. The woman blinked, clearly surprised. Then, to Charlie's delight, her lips twitched, her eyes sparkled, and she giggled. It was the sweetest sound Charlie had heard all day. The woman laughed, clutching her sides as she continued to giggle. Her laughter was like a spark, catching on to others around her. Charlie turned to Olivia, his face lighting up. "See? I told you it would work!" Olivia grinned. "That's amazing, Charlie. Look, everyone's starting to smile." Charlie nodded, his heart swelling with pride. The laughter was starting to spread just like he had hoped. He watched as the tickled woman turned to another, and before long, a ripple of giggles began to echo through the square. As more people laughed, Charlie and Olivia moved around the square, using the feather on anyone who looked like they might need a little encouragement. "Excuse me, sir? Would you like a tickle?" Charlie asked, approaching a man who had been standing still, looking lost in thought. The man blinked at him and then broke into a laugh as the feather brushed his chin. "That tickles!" He chuckled. "See?" Charlie said to Olivia, grinning ear to ear. "Laughter's just waiting to come back. We just needed a little nudge." Olivia laughed too as she tapped a young boy on the shoulder with the feather. He immediately burst out laughing, clutching his belly. It was working. Slowly but surely, the sound of laughter was creeping back into Willowbrook, each giggle lifting the town's spirits higher. Charlie watched with pride as the people of his town, one by one, started laughing again. First a giggle here, a chuckle there, and soon a full-blown roar of laughter that filled the square. Charlie and Olivia high-fived. They had done it. "Looks like we're back in business," Olivia said, still smiling. Charlie grinned. "Just wait. The giggles are only just beginning." The sound of laughter continued to echo through Willowbrook as Charlie and Olivia watched the town slowly come alive again. It was like the quiet spell that had blanketed the streets for so long was finally being lifted. People were smiling, chuckling, and, best of all, laughing. Charlie felt his heart swell with pride as the tickly feather worked its magic on the people of the town. But Charlie knew they couldn't stop there. The invisible backpack still had plenty more tricks to offer. "All right, Olivia," Charlie said with a mischievous grin. "We've got them laughing, but now we need to make sure the fun doesn't stop. Time to pull out some of my best tricks." Olivia's eyes sparkled with excitement. "What have you got in mind?" Charlie closed his eyes and began to imagine reaching deep into his invisible backpack. His hand seemed to stretch forever as he searched for the perfect item to keep the laughter rolling. Finally, he pulled out a set of silly faces. A stack of them, as big as a dinner plate. Charlie grinned. He knew exactly what to do with them. "Watch this," Charlie said, holding one of the big, wobbly faces up to his own. He pushed the face onto his own head, and the whole town gasped, then erupted into laughter. The face was comically large, with a long, crooked nose, enormous eyes, and a mouth that seemed to stretch from one ear to the other. He crossed his eyes and wobbled around in a funny, exaggerated dance. "Ha! Look at that face!" A passerby laughed, pointing at Charlie. Charlie jumped around like a silly puppet, making the face wobble even more. He shook his body in strange, jerky movements, and everyone who saw him couldn't help but burst into laughter. Olivia doubled over with giggles. "You look hilarious, Charlie." Charlie tossed the face to Olivia. "Your turn." She slid the big face onto her head, and instantly, her expression changed. She looked even more ridiculous than Charlie. Olivia began doing the same wobbly dance, and soon the whole square was filled with people trying on the silly faces, laughing harder with each new one. The town was alive again with joy. Charlie was grinning from ear to ear as he watched the townspeople take turns showing off their goofy faces and doing funny dances, but he knew they needed one last thing to make this day truly unforgettable. "All right, Olivia," he said, pulling a handful of silly hats out of the invisible backpack. They were the kind of hats that you would only wear to a party: a feathered hat, a hat with floppy ears, one that looked like a giant banana. "These should do the trick," Charlie announced. "Everyone loves a silly hat." He placed a feathered hat on his head and walked up to Mrs. Potter, the baker. She had been smiling, but now she looked even more cheerful as she saw Charlie approach her with a hat in hand. "Good morning, Mrs. Potter," Charlie said, tipping the hat toward her. "I brought you a new look." Mrs. Potter laughed as Charlie gently placed the silly feathered hat on her head. "Well, if that's not the silliest hat I've ever worn, I don't know what is," she said, giggling. "Try it on, everyone," Charlie encouraged. "No one's too old for a silly hat." Soon, everyone in the square was wearing one of Charlie's goofy hats, and the laughter intensified. People paired their silly hats with exaggerated dance moves, made up silly songs, and even began telling their own jokes, just to see who could get the most laughs. It wasn't just about the tickly feather anymore. It wasn't just about the funny faces or the goofy hats. What Charlie had discovered was that laughter had its own magic. It spread from one person to the next, building and growing until the whole town was swept up in the joy of it. Olivia grinned. "Charlie, we did it! The town is full of giggles again." Charlie nodded, his eyes sparkling with pride. "Yeah, but we did it together! And as long as we keep the laughter going, Willowbrook will never be quiet again." The town square was filled with the sounds of happy, carefree laughter. The giggles and chuckles were back, and they were stronger than ever. Willowbrook was alive again, one laugh at a time. The sun began to set over Willowbrook, casting a warm golden glow over the town square. The laughter that had filled the air all afternoon slowly began to fade, but not in the sad way it had earlier. No, now the giggles lingered in the breeze, in the twinkling eyes of the town's people, and in the happy chatter that seemed to echo on every street corner. Charlie, Olivia, and all of Willowbrook had shared a day full of joy, and as the evening approached, Charlie knew the town had truly come back to life. "It worked," Olivia said, still smiling from ear to ear. "Look at everyone. The laughter is back, just like you said." Charlie beamed. "It's not just me, it's everyone. Everyone played their part. All those silly jokes, faces, and hats. It's the laughter that brought it all back. We just needed a little push." Olivia nodded. "I think the best part is seeing how it spread. From one giggle, the whole town got their joy back." Charlie's eyes shone with a new idea. "That's the thing about laughter, Olivia. It's like a gift. When you share it, it grows, and the more you share it, the more it multiplies." As the last rays of the sun dipped behind the horizon, Charlie felt a strange sense of accomplishment. He had done what he set out to do, but more importantly, he had helped Willowbrook rediscover something magical: the power of laughter. Walking through the square, Charlie saw people talking and laughing together, their faces bright and full of happiness. The bakery was bustling with customers. The park was filled with children playing and laughing, and even the grumpy old Mr. Fenwick was chuckling as he shared a funny story with his neighbors. It was clear that the giggles had returned, and they were here to stay. Charlie and Olivia found a bench and sat down, watching the joyful chaos around them. "I'm glad we did this, Charlie," Olivia said, resting her head on his shoulder. "This town needed a little fun." Charlie nodded. "Yeah, but I think we needed it too. Sometimes we all forget how powerful something simple like laughter can be." Olivia turned to Charlie, her eyes filled with admiration. "You've got this amazing backpack of ideas, Charlie. I think the best part isn't that it's invisible, but that it's always full of possibilities. You never know what you'll pull out next." Charlie grinned. "Maybe next time I'll pull out a trampoline or a giant bubble machine." They both laughed, imagining the possibilities. But as Charlie thought about it, he realized something even more important. His invisible backpack wasn't just full of funny tricks or silly things. It was a reminder that creativity, joy, and laughter could come from anywhere, anytime. As the evening grew darker, the town square was illuminated by the soft glow of streetlights. Charlie could still hear the sounds of laughter rising up from every corner, and it filled his heart with warmth. The giggles weren't going anywhere. They had become a permanent part of Willowbrook once more. Charlie stood up, stretching. "I think it's time to pack up for the night, but I have a feeling tomorrow will be just as fun as today." Olivia stood with him, grinning. "Well, I think we've learned a big lesson today." Charlie raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Olivia smiled. "That no matter how quiet or still the world may seem, there's always something you can do to bring the joy back. All it takes is a little bit of imagination." Charlie nodded thoughtfully. "And maybe a few silly faces along the way." They laughed together as they walked home, their hearts light and full of happiness. As they passed by the bakery, Charlie looked up at the night sky. The stars twinkled brightly above, almost as if they, too, were smiling down on Willowbrook. Charlie smiled to himself, feeling content. He had learned that no matter how tough things got, there was always a way to find joy, even if it meant reaching into an invisible backpack for something a little silly. The town of Willowbrook had rediscovered its laughter, and with it, the magic that came from sharing joy with others. And so, with a heart full of happiness, Charlie knew that, as long as he had his invisible backpack, there would always be a way to bring back the giggles whenever the world needed them most. Moral of the story: laughter is a gift that grows when shared, and even the smallest bit of joy can bring light to the darkest moments.